Hey, it's Harry. Welcome in to the 1983 Still Ugly After All These Years celebration of the Chicago White Sox. Well, we thought we were going to be celebrating the Chicago White Sox. We celebrated them all year. They were just outstanding, winning the division by 20 games. And the year before, the Sox had lost the AL West by 6 games. Here they were dominating from start to finish, led by the Cy Young winner, Lamar Hoyt, the Rookie of the Year, Ron Kittle, and you'll see his handsome mug in just a bit. And you're also going to have a chance to visit with Tommy Paciorek. In 1983, no one expected the White Sox to dominate the way they did. And then Julio Cruz scores coming in from third base on a sac fly, and the clubhouse was just going crazy. This is Still Ugly on the Games People Play Media Network.
Here comes a throw. Here comes Cruz. Sox grab the Golden Ring. The 1983 Western champions in the American League. And you think there aren't some happy people on the field.
Joining me now is White Sox legendary broadcaster Ken the Hawk Harrelson. Hawk Harrelson, a man who not only lit up Major League pitchers while he was playing, but he lit up magazine covers, restaurants, golf courses, one of the greatest personalities in the history of baseball. He was in baseball for, I think he was in the womb about month 3 or 4. Somebody offered him a contract, Kansas City, and he signed with them. Hawk Harrelson, you are looking so good. Thanks for joining us on the Games People Play Media Network for Still Ugly.
My pleasure, Harry.
All right, so when you think back, first of all, we've got you leading off today. When was the last time Hawk Harrelson was inserted in the leadoff spot? Did you ever hit leadoff in your life?
No. No, I didn't. I was trying to remember. I think there was one game that I did. There was a game against Cincinnati. It was an exhibition game, Alvin Dark. I didn't want to play because I've been playing every day, and we had the Ohio thing. It was Cleveland versus Cincinnati, the Reds. And I didn't want to play. He said, well, you got to. He said, these fans are coming here to watch you play. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, you hit leadoff, and if you get on, if you get a base hit, you can get out of here. And I said, okay, so Johnny Bench was catching, and I told him, I said, if I get on, I said, I'm going to go on the first pitch, which I knew he could throw me out, right? So sure enough, I got a base hit to left field. I got on, I went on the first pitch. I got a good jump, and he didn't even get up. He just threw from his knees and nailed me by about 10 or 15 feet. And as I was walking off the field, I tipped my cap to Johnny. I went in and got showered and dressed and left. That's the only time.
You don't need a pregame pep talk. You just need to tell guys, hey, you get on base and you can go home. That's all you needed.
Yeah.
Hawk, when you look back to the 1983 season, what
Yes.
comes floating back into your memory banks?
Oh, so many things, Harry. I mean, that was just, the team that I played on in Kansas City that later went to Oakland and won 3 consecutive world championships, they had great chemistry. And the 83 White Sox had some of the best chemistry I've ever seen. And Tony did a great job with that club because they had parties together. They on the planes, they had fun together. We got to the hotel. He would always have a room that everybody could go up. It was like a hospitality suite, and go up there and just tell some lies, just have a good time. And then Luzinski and Jerry Kuzman, those were 2 of the leaders on that ball club. And they used to sit around sometimes, especially after a tough loss, which they didn't have many that year. They won 99 games and won a division by 20. And but they would sit around to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning drinking beer and talking baseball. You don't see that anymore. Now the game has changed and evolved into a situation where as soon as that game's over, they go in the shower and they're out of there. But we used to sit around and talk baseball, as I said, to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they started off poorly. I think they started off like 12-15 or 12-16. And then, as I said, wound up winning 99 games. But between Hoyt and Dotson and Bannister, I believe those guys went 42-6 the second half of the season, and you won't see that again. And we had real good pitching, we had a good bullpen, and it was just a together club. And that's one thing that I remember about it, because, and Kittle won the Rookie of the Year, and of course Lamar, the Cy Young, as you mentioned earlier, and Richard Dotson finished second. Either one of those guys, I think Dot had 22 wins, and White had 24 wins. And but Kuzman was he was in the forefront. He and the Bull Luzinski, they would get on guys. I mean, they would eat their ass up. I mean, they really would. They would get on them, and if somebody didn't run anything out, back in those days, the players took care of the situation. The managers didn't have to do it. I remember Rocky Colavito, when I was playing in Kansas City, he joined us, and one of our guys popped up and didn't run it out. And he got back to the dugout, and Rocky grabbed him by the neck and said, "You ever do that again, I'm going to kick your bass." He said, "Because of the fact you're embarrassing the club, you're embarrassing the manager, you're embarrassing us, and you're embarrassing yourself." So that was the kind of attitude that the '83 White Sox had. And then when Doug Rader gave him the nickname Winning Ugly, it stuck all these years. So it became like the momentum seeker, so to speak, and the momentum giver that the club needed. And as I said, when you wind up winning 99 games and winning the division by 20, that'll tell you how dominant they were.
Yeah, Hawk, you mentioned how it was old-time baseball, that the manager didn't need to speak, that the guys, the veterans on the team, the vets would let the younger players know, hey, that's not the way we do it around here. We shared a friend in the late, great Milt Pappas, and Milt used to get so upset when guys would leave the team to go be at the birth of their kids. He would get upset when they would go to their kids' or their grandkids' graduation. He said, that's not the way we did it back then. Do you have any problem now, looking back on it? Do you have any problem now with today's players that I've seen managers do it, leave the team for a game or two to go be at the birth of a child? Milt used to say they know it takes 9 months. They should have planned it better.
Well, no, there are not many people. I think there are only about 5 or maybe 6 guys who've been in baseball longer than I have. And that is being in professional baseball, all the parts of 8 decades. So I've seen a few things. And if you're going to be in baseball that long, you have to learn how to adjust. And that's what the game has evolved in, a game of adjustments now, because society is different. And I don't blame these players at all, because these players are only doing what they were taught. And that's the way they came up in high school, college, and everything else. We came up in a different culture. We came up in one where it was a hard-nosed type thing. You bust your ass every day, you play hard, and you have fun. And these guys today, in their own way, do the same thing. It's just they do it in a different type of tone, so to speak. And like they go up in between innings, in the clubhouse. And you couldn't go into the clubhouse in between innings when I played in my era. You do that and you're going to get fined. I mean, big. And when I say big, I'm talking about $50, $100, because that was a lot of money back in those days, especially when the minimum salary was $6,000. In my first 2 years in the major leagues, I made more money playing golf, shooting pool, and arm wrestling than I did playing Major League Baseball. So you didn't go in the clubhouse during the game. You sat there, and the managers, what they would do a lot of times is most of the time, if you weren't playing that day, he would come to you before the game and say, okay, look, I want you to watch the third base coach, or I want you to watch the first base coach, or I want you to watch whatever, and see if you can get any pick up the signs of whatever. So that kept you in the ball game. And that doesn't happen today at all either. But it's the way these guys play. I'll tell you what, these guys are better players than we were. I was just a tick above average major league player. And these guys today who were a tick above average major league players, they were so much better than I was. It's not even funny, because of the fact you got a big Latin, influence and influx of Latin players now. And it's like the White Sox. I told Jerry, our owner, I said, Jerry, this is the best position players wise. This is the most talent you've ever had since you've been here since 1982. And of course, that pitching staff that the '83 Sox had, as I mentioned, it was just a complete ball club that came together. And the manager allowed it. Tony La Russa allowed them to come together. And once they did, Tony just got out of the way. That's what good managers do. They get the hell out of the way and let them play.
The unmistakable presence, the very soothing voice of Hawk Harrelson is joining us on the Games People Play Media Network for a celebration of the 1983 winning ugly Chicago White Sox. Hawk, bullpen by committee is not supposed to work. You need a closer, but the White Sox had 4 guys that had at least 7 saves, and nobody believes me when I tell them Dennis Lamp led the team in saves. How did that work with the White Sox?
Well, Tony was actually the guy who first brought in a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, and a 9th inning guy. And he was the first manager to do that. And it worked. I know when he thought about it, the first time I can recall him doing that was in Boston. And we had a talk before the game, and he asked me, he said, "What do you think about this?" And I said, "Tony, why don't you just give it a try? Just give it." And it worked. And today it's commonplace with every team, the 7th and 8th and 9th inning guy. But Lampy was good. He had that hellacious sinker. And he went out there, and he was a joy to be around too, because he had such a great personality. And Jim Kern was a hard sore. A lot of people forget about him. And we had occasionally out of the bullpen as a long guy, Salome Barojas would come in there, and he'd get the job done. And it was a contribution. And the more players you can get contributing, the happier everybody is going to be. And that's exactly what Tony allowed the team to do.
Hawk, I hate to bounce you around from present day to '83, but I know you can handle it. And you bring up the fact that, La Russa used to use specific guys in certain situations. They're trying to speed up the game of baseball. Do you like the rule that if you bring in a new pitcher, you can no longer bring in a specialist to face 1 batter, that the guy you bring in from the bullpen has to face 3?
I hate it. I think it's absolutely bullshit. I really do. I mean, they're trying to legislate the game, and they're trying to put their fingerprint on it and whatever. Baseball fans don't care if the game goes 3.5 or 4 hours. I don't care. As long as we win, I don't care if we sit there all night, play there all night. But baseball fans don't care. And they've done this for, various reasons, one being television, and then the few fans that didn't like it are complaining about it constantly. But true baseball fans don't care how long the game goes. They just want to watch baseball. That's there, because baseball is a different game. It's not a football game. It's not a basketball game. It's not a fast-paced game. It's a slower game. It takes its time. And even broadcasting, it demands, I think you got so many announcers out there today who talk too much. I mean, there's no dead air. And baseball demands dead air. And I remember talking with Kurt Gowdy, and I remember talking with Howard Cosell. And if you listen to Vin Scully, one of the all-time greats, they allowed dead air in that ball game. That way you can use your imagination. You're just not sitting there like and listening and listening and listening. You're allowed to use your imagination. And that's what I've always thought baseball was a radio game anyway.
It's very interesting you say that. Pat Foley is awesome. I know you know Pat well, and he's the voice of the
Great.
Blackhawks. He is spectacular the way he's got, 20 guys to deal with every night on both teams, and they fly over the boards. They don't have to check in. But baseball, you're on the air for 3.5 hours, and there's maybe 18 minutes of action. So, I mean, you've got to be not only a baseball savant, but you've got to be kind of like a master of ceremonies. Is that lost on the younger announcers, or do you see a lot of good from the new breed of baseball announcers?
There was a writer who wrote this about Vince Scully. Said he is a play-by-play guy who tells stories, and he wrote that Hawk Harrelson is a storyteller who does play-by-play, and that's why Tom Fitzgerald was one of the greatest guys. Anybody can do a 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 ball game, because that's just a great ball game, and it handles itself, especially if you've got a good producer and a director. And those guys don't get enough credit either. Guys in the truck, they can. I used to tell Jim Mangio, who was there all the time I was, and I would in a certain situation in a ball game, I'd just hit my call switch and go down and tell Jimmy in his ear, "All right, buddy, go to work." And I just lay out and let the pictures tell the story. Let the pictures tell. The fans who are watching, there's so much to watch on television today besides baseball. If you're going to watch a baseball game, if you're going to watch the Sox or the Cubs or whoever, you know something about the game. And the average IQ, baseball IQ of a fan today, especially with females, has grown enormously. You're getting people, all the hundreds and hundreds of letters that I get. Some of them, are from females that just absolutely know the game of baseball. So the listening audience is different now than it was. And you don't have as much time. And I think one of the big mistakes that I have a lot of young aspiring announcers who will come to the ballpark or write me and say, what could you give me some tips? And if it's well written and they seem to be nice, I just tell them, just be yourself. And I would tell them the same thing that Kurt Gowdy and Howard Cosell told me. Don't try to please everybody, because you can't. It's impossible, especially in a two-team city like Chicago, like Boston and New York basically as a two-team city because of, proximity. And then you got the Dodgers and Oakland A's out there. So when you're talking about the Yankees and the Mets and the Red Sox, you can't please everybody, because you're going to have a lot of, and I told Jason this, Benetti, who's a terrific announcer now, and he's going to get better and better and better. I told him, I said, you're going to catch some unwarranted criticism because you're in a two-team city, and you're going to have some Cub fans who don't like you and they hate the White Sox. They're going to be calling up the score, whoever it may be, and ripping on you. And the same thing happens with now Casper and Lynn and those guys with the Cubs are terrific announcers. I enjoy listening to them, when the Sox are not on, and they're going to catch some criticism as well. So it's checks and balances. It's checks and balances. You got to understand what's going on, and if you do, then you can handle it. If you don't, then it'll drive you crazy. And I've got a thick skin. I've been ripped by the best in the world, and I've been praised by the best in the world. So, it's checks and balances.
Just a few more minutes with the great Hawk Harrelson, a legendary broadcaster, 33 years behind the mic for the Chicago White Sox. We're chatting with Hawk here on the Games People Play Media Network for our Win Ugly special called Still Ugly. Hawk, a lot of people around the world are forced to stay home. We've got the holidays not too far in the distant future. I read your book a couple years ago. It's outstanding read. So many great baseball stories. Why don't you tell us about that book real quick before we let you get it out of here?
Well, Jeff Snook, who was with me on the book, he's the one that put the words together, and cut and sliced and diced. The original manuscript was something. I can tell you that right now. It was, so my wife read it and she said, that's not going to work. That's not going to cut it. My daughter read it, Dad, that's not you. My son read it, Dad, that's not good. So we had to go in and redo it over again because there are some things in every career, in every aspect of professionalism, doctors, lawyers, baseball players, announcers, some things you got to go to the grave with, and I'm going to the grave with a lot of stuff because that's the way. So we got some of it in there. My wife is the chairman of the board, CEO of the Harrelson family. I can tell you that right now, and she what she says for the most part goes, and that's the reason we've been happily married, for 47 years. So she's my baby doll. And my Greek baby doll. But the book, I think we could probably do another one.
Really?
It won't be a kiss and tell. I can tell you that right now. I just don't like those books. You know, the one like Jim Bouton put out against Mickey Mantle a long time ago. You're a little young to remember that, but
Well,
that was,
when they leave the note, they fake the restaurant name. They tell them drive out to the restaurant to meet us, and they go there, and it's just like a deserted, burnt down store.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I just don't believe in that. I believe you gotta, you know, I guess they call it today, man up and eat some of the stuff that you've gone through.
Okay, so the book that people want to buy now, what's the title of that book?
Hawk.
How'd you get that title? So the new book, do you have a title for it?
The new one?
Yeah.
I wanted to end that book right there, Hawk, by just a simple thing, to be continued. So it would leave your mind open so you could understand there's more coming. And
I've got an idea, just a suggestion for the new book title. How about What You Talking About, Wagner?
You know who's become a great friend of mine is Joe West. Joe and I text each other and talk to each other probably once or twice a week. And every time when I'm watching a game that I see an umpire, I'll call Joe or text him and I'll say, look, I want you to watch this tape and see how horseshit this guy was. You know, he starts laughing. But Joe is going to break the all-time record for games called. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest umpire in the history of the game. And you know, you've heard me say it, Harry, many, many times. My first two rules about winning a Major League Baseball game, the first rule is you got to catch the ball. If you're going to give the other team, you know, 30, 31, 32 outs, and you're going to get 27, you're not going to beat them. You got to catch the ball. And the next rule is don't mess with Joe West.
Country Joe will take you out.
Oh, yeah.
Hawk, it's always great chatting with you. We've celebrated the 83 Sox, but I got to ask you about these guys. I got to ask you about, you know, Abreu's having an unbelievable year.
Yep.
And, you know, they've got Moncada. They've got Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez. They've got, you know, Madrigal was a great draft pick. My favorite player on the team is Tim Anderson. And Giolito has come on these last, you know, 2 seasons, have been terrific. What is your perspective of this White Sox club? How far can they go?
They can go all the way, Harry. But I can tell you this club is only going to go as well as Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is absolutely in that lineup. He's the leader of this ball club. That man was, if you recall, up until lately, you know, when he's had this going in this funk, he was getting base hits, hitting home runs. And usually, I think it's about 65, 67% of the time, the team that scores first wins that ball game. And we were scoring first a lot of games. And we're not scoring first in a lot of games right now, but we will come out of it because we got the perfect manager. Rick Renteria is just, you know, with all the Latin players that we have, if Tim Anderson is sitting out for a week or something, if he had an injury or whatever, you know, we could put 9 Latin players on the field at one time. So in my days, I remember when the Pittsburgh Pirates fielded 5 African-American players and everybody went crazy about that, you know. Well, that's gone because when I first came into baseball, there was a lot of bias. There was no question about that. A lot of racism going on, and it's not anywhere near what it was back in those days. That's the reason I had the honor and the pleasure of playing golf with Jackie Robinson. Jackie came up one day on the golf course and asked me if I had a game, and I said no. He said, can I play with you? I said, sure. We played 18 holes, Harry, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest 18-hole times I've ever had on the golf course in my life because all we talked about was golf. And here's a man who, Jackie Robinson, changed our culture. What a wonderful person he was and what a tough guy he was. But things are different now. And we're having to go through this insurrection that's going on in our country is just terrible. I mean, you know, it's just, you've never seen it. I've never seen it. Andrew's never seen it. You know, we just, and it's happened. It's got to stop. It's just we got to find a way. Our president's got to find a way to just go ahead and stop it. It's just that simple. But that because it affects baseball. Look, we got no fans in the stands now. We're having to do like we're doing right now, a lot of Zoom appearances. I like it when we got 35, 40,000 people in the seats and they're sitting there shoulder to shoulder and they're screaming and having a good time and pulling for our Sox to win, especially kicking the Cubs' ass a lot. I still want to do that. But, the only time I've ever pulled for a National League team to win the World Series was a couple of years ago when the Cubs were there. I pulled for them to win because it was going to be great for baseball. It was going to be great for our great city. And they did. And outside of that, I just wanted, as I said, I want to kick their ass every time we play them.
Well, Hawk, if there's a God, we'll get a Sox-Cubs World Series this year. But I'd say the Sox are in pretty great shape. And Reinsdorf should be commended because, he's not getting any younger. And a lot of owners would be now. And Reinsdorf has always been a very intelligent man. He said, we got to tear this thing down if we want to build it right up again. There's only one thing missing from the season, and that's Hawkaroo. Dadgummit, I wish I could cuss. Mercy, where's the one dog at? Come on, put it on the board. Yes, Hawk.
I miss it.
Hawk. And thank you so much for leading us off here on Still Ugly on the Games People Play Media Network. Take care of yourself. And if you get a chance in the near future, why don't you go out and play a little golf?
You got it, buddy.
The White Sox win it 4-3.